My name is Maya. I was 38 years old and had worked in HR for over a decade. People said I had it all, a stable job, a nice home in Atlanta, and a loving husband. At least, that's what I used to think. Jordan and I had been married for 12 years. He was smart, charming, and always knew the right things to say. We were goals on social media. But behind closed doors, it wasn't as perfect. He came home late often. Said it was work. Always tired. Always distant. I told myself it was just a busy season. We hadn't been close in months, but I brushed it off. Then one night, Jordan forgot his phone in the kitchen while showering. A message popped up. Friday night. Same place. Can't wait to see you again, Red Heart, Tasha. My heart froze. My legs stiffened. I picked up the phone. Opened the thread. Flirty texts. Pictures. Reservations. Private jokes. And then I saw it, Marlowe, 7:30 p.m. Friday. Table for two. Window seat. He had never taken me to Marlowe, even though I mentioned it for our anniversary. That's when the world I trusted began to fall apart. I stood there, phone in hand, as the water ran in the shower. I didn't move. Couldn't. Everything felt heavy. My breath was short. My hands shook. I scrolled through more messages, things I wish I hadn't read. She called him my J. He sent her a picture of the tie I gave him last Christmas. My knees felt weak. I wanted to scream. Cry. Break something. But I didn't. Instead, I quietly placed the phone back where he left it. Jordan came out minutes later, towel around his waist. Hey babe, he said casually, kissing my cheek. What's for dinner? I smiled. Leftover pasta. He didn't notice a thing. That night, I lay beside him, silent, while he snored peacefully. My body was tense. My mind raced. I kept replaying the messages. The table for two. The sweet nothings he used to say to me. He had no idea I knew. And I had no idea how deep this would go. But I wasn't going to fight him. I was going to expose them both. And I'd do it in the most unexpected way. By morning, my heartbreak had shifted into something else, clarity. I called into work, told my assistant I needed a personal day. I wasn't sick, I was determined. I needed to find out who Tasha really was. I searched her name in our company system. She joined our firm 6 months ago as a communications officer. I remembered her now, loud laugh, bright lipstick, and always hanging around Jordan during lunch breaks. Next, I found her Instagram. Selfies. Brunch pics. Gym mirror shots. Then I saw it, wedding photos. Tasha and Marcus, 5 years together. She was married. She had a husband. His name was Marcus Porter. I found his LinkedIn. Mechanical engineer. Worked downtown. Smiling face. Strong jaw. Looked like a good man. Too good for someone like her. That's when my idea hit me. Not revenge. Not drama. A reveal. Silent. Smart. Powerful. If Tasha and Jordan wanted to play this game, then Friday night, they could have their romantic dinner. And her husband would be seated at the table next to them, with me. I opened my laptop and began typing the email. Formal. Clean. Professional. Dear Mr. Porter. My name is Maya Bennett. I work in corporate outreach and recently read about your work in sustainable design. I'm planning a leadership dinner this Friday at Marlowe downtown and would love to invite you to discuss a potential speaking opportunity. Would 7:30 p.m. work for you? I read it again, then hit send. Less than 2 hours later, his reply came. Thank you for the kind invitation, Mrs. Bennett. That time and place works great. I'm honored. I exhaled. Now, it was set. Dinner. 7:30 p.m. Marlowe. Same time. Same place. Jordan walked into the kitchen just as I closed my laptop. Hey, I might have a meeting Friday evening, he said, scratching his neck. One of our clients asked for a late session. Of course, I said, smiling. Work comes first. He kissed my cheek again and poured himself some juice. He had no idea. I wasn't going to confront him with shouting. I was going to bury him with truth. Friday arrived faster than I expected. I spent the day pretending everything was normal. I answered emails. Cleaned the living room. Smiled when Jordan texted me, long day ahead. Don't wait up tonight, Redheart. I replied, I understand. Be safe. Inside, I was shaking. At 6:45, I slipped into a black dress I hadn't worn in years. Jordan once told me it made me look too serious. But tonight, I didn't care about his opinion. I pulled my hair into a bun. Wore light makeup. A bold red lip. At 7:15, I arrived at Marlowe. I had called the day before to reserve a table under my name, with one simple request: please seat me near the reservation under Jordan Harper. We're coordinating a project together. The host smiled and nodded. Of course, ma'am. At 7:28, Marcus walked in. He looked just like his photos. Tall, confident, slightly tired eyes. He wore a navy suit and carried himself like someone used to speaking in boardrooms. Mrs. Bennett, he asked. Maya, I said, standing to shake his hand. He smiled. Nice to meet you. We sat down. Neither of us had a clue how wild this night would get. Marcus was polite and a little quiet. He had that professional tone that made people listen. We started the conversation with work. I asked him about his recent engineering project. He explained it in a way that showed passion. I nodded, asked questions, and smiled at all the right moments. But my eyes kept drifting toward the door. At exactly 7:36, Jordan walked in, with Tasha. I stopped breathing for a second. She wore the same red dress from her Instagram. Her hair was curled. Her hand was looped around Jordan's arm like they were the only two people in the world. They laughed softly as they followed the hostess to their table, exactly 3 tables ahead of us, facing the window. I clenched my hands under the table. Jordan poured her wine with a smile I hadn't seen in years. Tasha touched his hand and leaned in. They looked like a couple in love. Marcus hadn't noticed them yet. I looked down at my menu, pretending to study it. My heart thudded loudly in my chest. I forced myself to speak. So, tell me more about your work with schools. He smiled and began talking again. But I was watching every move at the table ahead. As Marcus talked, I sipped my water and glanced up again. Jordan's hand was resting on the table, fingers dangerously close to Tasha's. They looked completely comfortable. Like they'd done this many times before. Tasha leaned over and whispered something. Jordan laughed. The same laugh I used to love. It felt like acid down my throat. I focused back on Marcus, nodding as he spoke about designing energy systems for public schools. I respected him. He was sharp, kind, and clearly dedicated to his work. He didn't deserve this. Neither of us did. Then, Tasha turned her head, and locked eyes with me. She froze. I smiled. Just a small, controlled smile. She turned back to Jordan quickly, whispering something into his ear. He looked confused. Then he looked up and spotted me too. His face changed instantly. Color drained from his skin. His hand froze over the wine glass. I kept my expression calm. Not a single word. He turned back to Tasha in panic. Marcus still hadn't noticed them. Yet. I stood up and gently excused myself. I'll be right back, I told Marcus, who nodded politely. I walked toward the restroom slowly, knowing eyes were on me. Just before I turned the corner, I glanced back. Jordan was whispering urgently. Tasha looked terrified. They were sweating in candlelight. I stood near the restroom door, pretending to check my lipstick in the mirror. As I expected, I didn't have to wait long. Tasha appeared minutes later, heels clicking on the tile. She looked around before spotting me by the sink. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Maya. What are you doing here? I tilted my head. Same question, Tasha. This isn't what it looks like. I laughed. Then what is it? A company dinner in a red dress and window seat? She looked like she might cry. Please. Marcus doesn't know. He thinks I'm working late. I stepped closer. He's sitting 3 tables away. He's my guest. Her mouth dropped open. You brought him here? She asked. I nodded. You wanted a secret dinner. I brought it into the light. Tasha leaned against the wall like the air had been knocked out of her. You don't understand, she whispered. Jordan said he was going to leave you. We were waiting for the right time. I raised an eyebrow. The right time? Like Friday nights at expensive restaurants? She wiped her eyes. I didn't want it to go this far. I felt seen. I stepped back. Then let Marcus see you too. I walked past her without another word. As I approached my table, I saw Jordan trying to get the waiter's attention, probably to ask for the bill and disappear. But he was too late. I sat down next to Marcus and took a deep breath. He noticed something was off. Everything okay? I looked him in the eye. Marcus, do you know who your wife is having dinner with tonight? He blinked. What? I pointed to their table. Right there. Jordan. My husband. Marcus turned slowly, following my gaze. He stared for a few seconds. Tasha had just returned to the table. Jordan said something quietly to her, probably begging her to keep cool. Then Marcus saw her clearly. She laughed nervously. He tilted his head. Confused. Shocked. He turned back to me. That's Tasha. Yes, I said. And Jordan? I nodded. He didn't speak for a while. I watched his face go from confusion to realization to devastation. Are you sure? He asked softly. I read the messages. I saw the photos. I saw the dinner reservation. I knew she would be here. And I knew you deserved to see it too. His mouth opened like he wanted to say something, but no words came out. We sat in silence for another moment. Then he stood up. Wait, I said gently. Please. Don't make a scene. He clenched his jaw. I'm not here to cause drama. I'm here to hear the truth. And then he started walking toward their table. I stood too, following behind just in case. As Marcus approached, Jordan's face turned pale. Tasha slowly raised her eyes. He reached their table and looked straight at her. Hi, Tasha, he said flatly. She gasped. Marcus. Jordan shifted uncomfortably. Look, man, Marcus raised a hand to stop him. No. I don't want lies. I just want to hear it from her. Tasha stood up slowly. Her voice trembled. It wasn't planned. It just happened. He nodded. For how long? She swallowed. 3 months. He didn't say a word. Just looked at her like she was someone he no longer recognized. Then he turned to Jordan. And you? How long have you been pretending? Jordan couldn't look him in the eye. It's complicated. No, Marcus snapped. It's simple. You both cheated. While she was married to me, and you to her. I stepped closer and said softly, and now everyone knows. The restaurant was quiet. A few tables nearby had noticed. Waiters paused. Forks were frozen in midair. People stared without blinking. Tasha was crying now, trying to reach for Marcus's hand. He pulled away. I trusted you, he said. I built a life with you. She opened her mouth, but he cut her off. You left me in the dark for a man who doesn't even have the courage to face his wife. Jordan stepped toward me. Maya, please. I raised my voice slightly. Don't touch me. He froze. I turned to Marcus. Come on. Let's leave. We walked out together, leaving the mess behind. Outside, the cool air hit me like a wave. We stood in silence. Then Marcus chuckled bitterly. Well. That was a dinner I'll never forget. I gave a tired smile. At least the wine was decent. We both laughed. For the first time that night, the weight on my chest eased. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the lie was finally exposed. Marcus and I walked a little farther from the restaurant. We found a bench outside a bakery that had closed for the night. The air was cold, but it felt better than sitting inside a room full of lies. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I really didn't expect that tonight. I know, I replied. I'm sorry. I didn't know how else to show you. No, I'm glad you did, he said. Otherwise, I'd still be in the dark, buying her flowers and waiting for her to come home. That hit me. I remembered how many times I'd cooked Jordan's favorite meals, hoping it would make him love me again. I'd been feeling stupid lately, I admitted. Wondering what I did wrong. Marcus turned to me. You didn't do anything wrong. Neither of us did. We sat in silence for a bit. I finally said, Want to grab coffee? I'm not ready to go home. He smiled. I know a place that stays open late. And just like that, we stood up and kept walking. Two people with broken hearts, starting to put the pieces together, one step at a time. The coffee shop was quiet. Just a few students with laptops and soft jazz playing in the background. We found a table by the window and ordered 2 cappuccinos. Did she ever seem distant to you? I asked. Marcus nodded. Started a few months ago. Said work was stressful. Needed space. Same here, I said. Jordan blamed everything on meetings. But now I know, they were having dinner dates. He shook his head. I kept thinking I was imagining it. She'd smile and say I was overthinking. I believed her. I used to believe Jordan too, I said. Even when it hurt. The coffees came. We sipped quietly. Marcus looked out the window. It's strange. You live with someone. Share a bed. And somehow, they managed to live a double life. I nodded. Strange and cruel. He looked at me. Thank you for tonight. It hurt, but I needed the truth. Me too, I replied. I'm done being in the dark. The truth stung, but it also set something free. After coffee, Marcus offered to walk me to my car. I didn't know why, but his presence calmed me. Maybe because we understood each other's pain without explaining it. At my car, I paused. Do you think you'll forgive her? He took a long breath. I don't know. Right now, I just feel numb. I nodded. Same. He looked at me, softer this time. Will you forgive him? Eventually, I said. But I'll never forget. We shared a quiet moment. Not awkward. Just real. I'm glad we met, I said. Even if it was like this. He smiled. Same. Can I check on you sometime? Of course. We exchanged numbers, not as strangers anymore, but as two people who got dragged through the same fire. I watched him walk away toward his car, hands in his pockets. I sat in mine, locked the doors, and finally exhaled. The hard part wasn't over, but I had faced it. Tomorrow, I would decide what came next. But tonight, I chose peace. The next morning, the sun felt different. Warmer. Softer. I made coffee and stared out the window for a while. Jordan was still asleep. He had come home late. I didn't ask questions. He didn't offer answers. I didn't care. He finally came downstairs around 10 a.m., rubbing his face. "Morning," he said. I didn't respond. He poured coffee, then sat across from me. "We need to talk," he said. I folded my arms. "Go ahead. I made a mistake. A big one. But I still love you. I want to fix this." I stared at him. "You don't love someone and lie to them for 3 months." His eyes watered. It wasn't about love. It was stupid. I felt distant. "She was just there. She was your escape," I said. "Not your mistake." He didn't deny it. "I'll do anything," he whispered. "Therapy. Quitting my job. Cutting her off. Just don't leave." I stood up. "I'm not leaving today." His face lit up. "But don't confuse that with forgiveness." Jordan spent the weekend trying to be the man I married. He cooked dinner. Cleaned the house. Asked how I was feeling. But it felt fake. Everything he said sounded like a script. Like he had Googled how to win back your wife. He texted me when I was upstairs. "You looked beautiful last night." I mean it. I ignored it. On Monday, he left for work early. I stared at his empty side of the bed. It used to bring me comfort. Now it felt like a lie. I checked my phone. A message from Marcus. "Just checking in. Hope you're okay." I replied. "Thank you. Still processing." "You?" He replied quickly. "Same. But I slept better than I thought I would. I guess honesty clears the mind." I smiled for the first time that morning. Honesty really does something. It hurts. But it heals too. The next few days passed slowly. Jordan tried everything, flowers, gifts, even cooking my favorite dish. But none of it worked. Not this time. You can't erase betrayal with roses. I started journaling again, writing down every moment I felt angry, sad, confused, or even numb. And surprisingly, Marcus and I kept texting. Just small check-ins. Nothing romantic. Just honest words. "My apartment feels colder now," he wrote. "I get it," I replied. "My home feels like a stranger's place." It helped, having someone who didn't judge. Who didn't say, "Move on," or "Stay." Just listened. Jordan started noticing. He asked once, "Who are you texting?" I replied, "Someone who understands." He didn't ask again. Because deep down, he knew. He couldn't be that person for me anymore. Friday came again. 1 week since the dinner. Jordan came home early with takeout and 2 tickets to a movie we once loved. "I thought maybe we could start over," he said. I stared at the bag. At the movie envelope. Then I looked at him. "Jordan," I said calmly. "Do you even know who I am anymore?" He blinked. "What? Do you know my favorite color? My favorite flower? When was the last time you asked how my day went?" He looked down. "I tried," he mumbled. "No," I replied. "You cheated. Then you tried not to lose." He stepped closer. "Please. Don't give up." I turned away. "I gave you years. You gave her a table for 2. He said nothing. And for once, the silence told the truth. The weekend felt different. Jordan stayed in the guest room without asking. Maybe he finally understood the distance wasn't just emotional anymore. I went for a walk on Sunday morning. Cold breeze. Quiet streets. I stopped by the small bookstore near our house. Inside, I found a novel I used to love. A story about a woman who found herself after heartbreak. I bought it. When I stepped outside, my phone buzzed. Marcus. Want to grab coffee again? No pressure. I hesitated. Not because I didn't want to, but because I did. Sure, I replied. Same place? Yep. 6 p.m. I smiled. Not because I was in love, but because someone had seen my broken pieces, and didn't flinch. I arrived at the cafe at 6 p.m. sharp. Marcus was already there, seated at the same table by the window. He stood when he saw me and smiled, not too big, not awkward. Just right. Hi, he said. Hey. We ordered tea this time. Something warm, not too strong. How's your week been? He asked. Strange, I answered. Calm on the outside, messy on the inside. He nodded. Same. We talked about everything, except them. No Tasha. No Jordan. Just music, childhood stories, and weird clients we dealt with at work. It felt easy. Light. He told me about how he used to draw buildings as a kid, and how his mom thought he'd be an artist. I told him I once dreamed of being a writer, but life had other plans. He leaned back and said, maybe now's the time to dream again. I smiled. Maybe it is. After we left the cafe, Marcus offered to walk me to my car again. I said yes without thinking twice. The sky was deep blue, and the streetlights cast soft golden light on the sidewalk. You look more at peace today, he said. I feel lighter, I admitted. We stopped by my car. There was a quiet moment between us. Not tension. Just stillness. He looked at me. You're strong, Maya. I shrugged. I didn't feel strong last week. Sometimes, strength is just showing up. I didn't reply. I just smiled. Thank you for being honest with me, I said. Most people would have run away. I almost did, he joked. We laughed. Then he stepped back. Good night, Maya. Good night, Marcus. He walked away, hands in his pockets again. And I stood there, not heartbroken this time, but whole. That night, Jordan came to my room. I want to know if there's still a chance, he said. I looked at him carefully. A chance at what? At us, he whispered. At fixing this. I thought about all the nights I cried silently while he smiled at his phone. All the dinners I ate alone. All the lies he made sound like love. I'm not sure I want us anymore, I said. His eyes filled with tears. Please. I'll do anything. Except not cheat, I replied. Because that already happened. He dropped to his knees. I'll earn it back. I swear. I gently stood. Get up, Jordan. This isn't a movie. You don't get to hit rewind. He looked broken. But I didn't feel bad. Because this was the pain he gave me, now returned. Monday morning, I filed for a short leave from work. I told my team I needed space. No one asked too many questions. Maybe the sadness showed on my face. That afternoon, I started packing some things. Not because I was moving out yet, but because I was preparing to start over. Jordan watched from the hallway. You're serious, he said. I have to be, I replied. Because if I'm not, I'll stay stuck in this cycle. He nodded slowly. Will you be staying with someone? No, I said. Just myself. He looked away, ashamed. And I picked up my bag and walked out the door. I checked into a small hotel in Midtown for a few nights. Not fancy, but quiet. I needed that. I lit a candle by the window and opened the book I bought earlier. The one about the woman who rebuilt her life. For the first time in months, I read without distraction. My phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Hope your day went okay. Don't forget, even broken wings can still fly. I smiled. Thank you. I'm learning that slowly. I closed the phone, took a deep breath, and whispered out loud. I am not broken. I'm just beginning. 3 days had passed since I checked into the hotel. I felt empty but calm. I was starting to enjoy the quiet. No fake smiles. No pretending. No one lying beside me at night with someone else's scent. I woke up and made tea instead of coffee. I didn't know why, but it felt like a softer start. I journaled for an hour and took a long shower. Simple things. Jordan hadn't texted much. Just one message yesterday, I hope you're okay. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new message from Marcus. I started packing up her things. Hardest part was folding her favorite sweater. The one I bought. I replied. Let yourself feel it. Don't rush through the pain. He sent a thumbs up emoji. I was glad we stayed in touch. Not because I needed a man. But because I needed someone who knew the feeling of betrayal without having to explain it. Later that night, I sat by the window and looked out at the city. I whispered one promise to myself. I will not go back to what broke me. And I meant it. The next day, I went back to the house. I didn't tell Jordan I was coming. I just needed to grab more clothes, my laptop, and a few books I'd left behind. When I walked in, he was in the kitchen. He looked surprised, but not angry. Hey. I'm not here to talk, I said quickly. Just picking up my things. He nodded and stepped back. Do you need help? No. I went upstairs and started folding clothes into my suitcase. He stood in the hallway. Watching. Maya, is there any chance we can start fresh? I stopped folding. Start fresh? I said. Jordan, you didn't just make a mistake. You lived a lie for months. I know, he whispered. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn you back. I zipped the suitcase and looked at him. I don't need a man who tries after destroying everything. I needed one who never did it in the first place. I walked past him without another word. Back at the hotel, I cried for the first time in days. Not loud sobs. Just quiet tears that slipped down my cheeks without warning. I sat on the edge of the bed, hugging a pillow, thinking about everything. The broken trust. The dinners I made that went cold. The nights he held me while thinking of someone else. It was too much. I wiped my face and reminded myself, this is part of the process. Let it out. Then my phone buzzed. It was Marcus. You okay? Just hit a wave, I replied. Trying to stay afloat. Float. Don't force yourself to swim yet. I smiled at that. I didn't feel alone in that moment. And that made all the difference. The next morning, I checked out of the hotel and moved into a short-term rental. It was small, but cozy. A one-bedroom space with a bright kitchen and a little balcony. It felt more like mine than the house ever did. I spent the afternoon unpacking, hanging clothes, and lighting a lavender candle. I bought groceries and a small plant for the windowsill. Every little thing helped me feel in control again. Jordan called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, just wanted to know you're safe. I miss you. I deleted it. I opened my laptop and started working on a short article for a blog I'd abandoned years ago. Writing helped. That evening, I played music. Soft, slow songs. Then Marcus texted again. Made it through today without crying. That's a win, right? Huge win, I replied. You're doing great. We weren't healing fast. But we were healing. Later that week, Marcus invited me to a small art show. It wasn't a date, at least we didn't call it that. He just said it might be a good distraction. I hesitated. Then said yes. We met outside the gallery on a chilly Thursday evening. He wore a dark coat and looked tired but warm. You came, he said. I did. Inside, the place smelled like paint and old books. Soft music played as we walked through displays. Abstract art. Cityscapes. Strange clay shapes. We talked about everything except them. About books we loved as kids. Our worst haircuts. His love for hiking. My obsession with spicy food. For a few hours, I forgot why we were there. I forgot who broke us. And when we stepped back outside, we stood in the cold silence for a moment. Thanks for inviting me, I said. He smiled. Thanks for coming. He reached out and gently squeezed my hand. Not a move. Just a moment. And I let it stay. That weekend, I attended a yoga class near my rental. It was part of my plan to rebuild myself, physically and mentally. The instructor spoke softly, guiding us through movements. My body felt stiff, but I followed along. At the end, we laid in silence, breathing slowly. A few tears rolled down my cheeks. Not because I was sad, but because I finally felt something other than anger. After class, I walked home. The wind was cold, but the sun was bright. When I got inside, I checked my phone. Jordan had texted. I'm still fighting for us. I didn't reply. There was another message, this time from Marcus. Do you want to go for a walk tomorrow? No pressure. Yes, I replied. And just like that, I chose peace over panic again. Jordan was trying to win me back. But I wasn't a prize. I was a person rediscovering her worth. Marcus and I met at the park the next morning. The trees were losing their leaves, and the path was covered in gold and red. It felt like the world was shedding old layers, just like us. We walked slowly. No rush. No plans. How are you sleeping? He asked. Better, I said. How about you? Still waking up at 3 a.m., wondering what went wrong. I nodded. Same. But I remind myself, it wasn't our fault. He stopped by a bench. Can we sit? We did. A quiet breeze blew between us. I miss who I thought she was, he admitted. I looked at him. I miss who I thought I was, with him. He turned toward me. You're still that person. Just stronger now. I smiled. You too. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I started writing again, he said. Poems. Like I used to. Can I read one? He handed it to me. It was about forgiveness, not for them, but for ourselves. I held on to it gently, like it was something rare. Because in a way, it was. That evening, I placed Marcus's poem on my nightstand. I kept reading one line over and over. I am still here, softer but not smaller. It spoke to me. I was still here, too. And every day, I felt more like myself again. The next morning, Jordan showed up at my rental without warning. I heard the knock, peeked through the blinds, and sighed. I opened the door slowly. What are you doing here? I needed to see you, he said. I can't sleep. I keep hoping this is a bad dream. It's real, I replied. And it's your doing. He stepped closer. Please. Let's go to therapy. Let me fix this. I shook my head. I don't want to fix something that still hurts to hold. Maya. I'm building a new life. And you're not part of the plan. His eyes watered. I closed the door. And locked it. After that day, I blocked Jordan's number. Not out of hate, but out of peace. Every time I saw his name on my phone, my heart raced in the worst way. I was tired of feeling that. I focused on work. Got back to reading. Took long baths with soft music in the background. I started saying no more. No to stress. No to things that didn't bring me joy. Marcus and I met every few days. Sometimes for tea. Sometimes to walk in silence. He brought me a book one evening. It reminded me of you, he said. It was about women starting over. We didn't need labels. We didn't need promises. Just understanding. One evening, he said, I'm not in a rush. But I do enjoy being around you. I looked at him and replied, same here. And that was enough for now. On Saturday, I visited my parents. They had sensed something was wrong for weeks, but I hadn't shared much yet. My mom hugged me for a long time. You've lost weight, she said. Are you okay? I nodded. I will be. Over lunch, I told them everything. The cheating. The dinner. The truth. My dad didn't speak for a while. Then he said, I always thought Jordan seemed too polished. My mom just held my hand. You don't have to be strong for us, she whispered. You already are. That night, I stayed in my old room. The posters were gone, but the memories were still there. I curled up in bed, thinking about how far I'd come. The girl who once believed in fairy tales was now a woman who believed in herself. And somehow, that felt even better. The next morning, I got a message from Tasha. It caught me off guard. I hadn't heard from her since the dinner. I know I don't deserve your time, but I needed to say I'm sorry. I stared at it for a while. Then came a second message. I ruined 2 marriages and hurt people who didn't deserve it. I'm not asking for anything. I just had to say it. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. But because some things don't need a response. Forgiveness isn't always a conversation. Sometimes, it's a decision you make quietly, for your own peace. I closed the message and turned off my phone. Then I picked up a pen and wrote in my journal. I am no longer tied to people who broke me. And I meant it. A few days later, Marcus and I tried something new. We went to a pottery class. He said he wanted to try something messy and fun. We sat at the same table, rolling wet clay, laughing when our pieces collapsed. I shaped something that looked like a lopsided mug. He made what might have been a bowl, or a hat. The instructor said, art doesn't have to be pretty. Just honest. We looked at each other and laughed. After class, our hands were still messy with dried clay. He looked at me. I think healing is like this, he said. Not clean. Not perfect. Just real. I smiled. Maybe we're our own kind of art. And in that moment, I realized, I didn't need to be fixed. I just needed to keep building. The next week brought something unexpected, peace. Not all the time. Not every second. But there were long stretches of stillness. My mind didn't race as much. I started sleeping through the night. My appetite returned. I caught myself humming while cleaning one morning. That's when I knew I was healing. Jordan didn't try reaching out again, not directly. But a mutual friend said he looked rough. Apparently, he had asked around about me. I didn't care. I had spent years worrying about his needs, his moods, his success. Now, I was focused on my own. I made a list that morning. Start running again. Finish my blog. Forgive myself. Try something new every week. The first item happened that evening. I jogged slowly through the neighborhood, letting the wind brush away old thoughts. And when I got home, Marcus had sent a message. You crossed my mind. Hope today was kind to you. It was. One evening, I joined a book club at a local cafe. I sat among 7 strangers and talked about characters, endings, and favorite quotes. It felt good to be part of something again. Afterward, I stayed behind to help the hostess clean up. She said, "You seem like someone starting fresh." I smiled. I guess I am. When I left the cafe, I stood outside under a street lamp and felt something I hadn't felt in months. Pride. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was starting to live. Marcus invited me to his firm's open house, a celebration for a new project they completed. He said, "No pressure. You can leave anytime." I said yes. I wore a soft navy blue dress and simple earrings. No makeup except lip gloss. When I walked into the event space, Marcus's eyes widened. "You look calm," he said. "I feel calm." We mingled. I met his coworkers. They were kind and curious. No one asked about our pasts. They only talked about present work and future plans. That night, while standing near the snack table, he leaned in and said, "I'm proud of you." My chest tightened, not in fear, but gratitude. It had been so long since someone said that. And meant it. That weekend, I visited a museum alone. I walked through halls of history and art, reading every plaque slowly. I didn't feel lonely. I felt whole. I stopped in front of a painting of a woman standing at a shoreline, holding her shoes in one hand, the wind blowing through her dress. She looked free. I sat on the bench across from her for a long time. I whispered, "That's me now." And I believed it. Marcus and I started meeting more often. Still no labels. Still no expectations. But our conversations got deeper. He told me about losing his father at 15. I told him about being bullied in middle school for being too quiet. We laughed, shared, and sometimes sat in silence. One night, he said, "You know what I like about us? We don't force anything." I nodded. It's just easy. That's when I realized, healing doesn't mean never being sad again. It means having someone who doesn't make your sadness worse. I received divorce papers from Jordan's lawyer. It felt like closing a book I'd been stuck in. I signed without crying. Later, I called Marcus and said, "It's officially over." He paused. "And how do you feel?" "Free." We met for dinner to mark the occasion. Not to celebrate the end of marriage, but the beginning of truth. He gave me a card that said, "Sometimes endings are just better beginnings." I framed it on my desk. A new chapter began with a new job offer. A startup wanted me to lead their people team. It meant better pay, more flexibility, and a clean slate. I accepted. My first day was filled with nervous smiles, new passwords, and fresh coffee. At lunch, I sat with 3 new colleagues. We shared stories. I laughed, a full, belly laugh. That night, I texted Marcus. "I feel like I'm becoming me again." "Correction," he wrote. "You're becoming who you were always meant to be." Marcus invited me to his sister's birthday dinner. He said, "No pressure again. Just show up." I wore a casual outfit and brought a bottle of wine. His family was warm. His sister hugged me and said, "He hasn't smiled this much in years." Marcus looked at me across the room. I smiled back. It didn't feel scary. It felt right. Jordan reached out one last time, an email. "I hope you're happy. I wish I had done things differently. You deserved better than me." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Some stories don't need a sequel. They just need to end. On my 39th birthday, I threw myself a small picnic with a few friends and Marcus. We laughed, played music, and danced barefoot in the grass. I made a wish before blowing out the candle. Not for love. Not for revenge. But for peace. And maybe a little more of what I already had. Marcus and I sat on my balcony one evening, watching the sky fade from gold to navy. He turned to me and said, "I don't know what we are, but I like us." I reached for his hand. Me too. It didn't need a title. It was enough. I looked in the mirror one morning and didn't see the broken woman anymore. I saw someone standing tall. Not because life was perfect, but because I had stopped letting others write my story. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a new journal. On the first page, I wrote. She thought she was winning, until I invited her husband to the same dinner. That's when I stopped being silent, and started becoming free. It had been 3 months since the dinner. 3 months since I stopped pretending. Since I stopped explaining myself to someone who only heard what he wanted. Since I stopped shrinking to fit inside a broken marriage. Life had become quieter. My mornings were slower. I drank tea on the balcony while the city came alive below me. Marcus and I were still close. No labels, no expectations. Just two people who understood what it meant to lose everything, and still choose to grow. He came over one Friday evening with Thai food and a movie. "You okay?" he asked, setting the bags down. "I am," I said. "I think I'm finally okay." He smiled and said, "I was hoping you'd say that." We ate. We laughed. "You handed it out like party favors." We laughed. But it wasn't about revenge. Not really. It was about truth. And letting the truth speak louder than any scream ever could. The following week, I gave a guest lecture at a local university. The topic was emotional intelligence in leadership. I stood in front of 40 students and spoke calmly. "Strong people aren't the ones who never get hurt," I said. "They're the ones who choose to grow after they do." After the class, one young woman stopped me. "How do you stay so composed?" I smiled. "Because I've already survived the storm." She nodded, like she understood. Maybe she had her own storm. And maybe she needed to see someone standing on the other side of it. Later that week, Marcus surprised me with 2 tickets to a jazz night. "You need a little music in your bones," he said. I wore a simple black dress and a long brown coat. He wore his favorite cologne. The one that smelled like pine and comfort. The music was soft. The lighting was warm. People clapped between songs. At one point, a slow tune began. He reached out his hand. "May I?" I hesitated. Then stood. We danced, slow and steady. My head rested gently on his chest. It didn't feel like a new beginning. It felt like peace finally catching up to me. After the jazz night, Marcus and I sat on the rooftop of his building, legs hanging over the edge, sipping tea from paper cups. "I never saw myself here," he said. "Where's here?" "Starting over. Letting someone in again." I looked at him. "Me neither." He turned and smiled. "But I'm glad I did." I nodded. We didn't kiss. We didn't make promises. We just sat there in the quiet. And sometimes, that says more than words ever can. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From Jordan. "Maya. There are no excuses. Just regrets. I miss what we had, but I understand if it's too late. You were always better than I deserved. Be happy. Jordan." I read it twice. Then I folded it up and placed it in the bottom drawer of my desk. Not to keep the pain, but to remind myself how far I'd come. I didn't cry. I didn't miss him. I just released it. At work, I was thriving. My new team respected me. My ideas mattered. I felt useful again, not just at work but in life. I started leading wellness sessions every other Friday. Mindfulness, boundary setting, emotional awareness. I was no longer just surviving the trauma. I was turning it into purpose. One coworker said, "You're the calmest person I've ever met." I smiled. I wasn't always. Growth looks quiet on the outside. But it's loud in the heart. Marcus and I finally took that hike he kept talking about. We packed snacks, water, and good shoes. The trail was long and a little muddy. But the view at the top, breathtaking. We sat on a rock, sharing orange slices and staring at the hills below. "You still afraid of letting go?" he asked. I took a breath. "No," I said. "Not anymore." And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. That night, as I laid in bed, I thought about the version of me from 3 months ago. Scared. Silent. Shaken. And now? Not perfect. Not fearless. But grounded. I whispered, "I'm proud of you," to no one in particular. And I knew I had finally become someone I would choose, if I had to start all over again. Marcus came over with flowers the next day. Not roses. Not anything fancy. Just a small bouquet of wildflowers. "Thought these looked like you," he said. "A little wild. A little strong." I laughed. "You know flowers don't fix things, right?" "Good," he said. "Because you're not broken." We placed the flowers in a jar by the window. And just like that, something small felt big. Because I was finally blooming, too. One evening, I stood in front of my closet, looking at the black dress I wore the night I exposed everything. I hadn't touched it since. I pulled it out, held it up, and smiled. Not because of the pain it reminded me of, but because of the power I found that night. It was the dress I wore when I stopped begging to be loved and started choosing myself. I carefully placed it back on the hanger and whispered, "Thank you." Then I shut the door and walked away, ready for new memories. Marcus called me from a bookstore downtown. "They're doing a reading on rebuilding after betrayal," he said. "Want to come?" I paused. Then I said, "Yes." We sat in the back as a woman read excerpts from her memoir. Her voice trembled, but her words were strong. They broke my heart, but they didn't break my story. I wrote that line in my notebook. After the reading, Marcus and I walked outside. "That hit close," he said. "It did," I nodded. "But it didn't hurt." That's when I realized healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering without breaking. We spent a Sunday afternoon at the farmer's market. The sky was clear, the food fresh, and the music loud. We tasted jams, bought homemade candles, and tried different cheeses. At one point, Marcus leaned close and whispered, "This feels like something normal people do." I laughed. "Do you think we're normal now?" He shook his head. "No. But I think we're real. And real, I've learned, is better than perfect." One night, I got a message from a new number. Tasha left the city. It was from a mutual colleague. No goodbye. Just cleared her desk and moved. I didn't reply. I didn't ask where she went or why. She was no longer part of my life or my thoughts. I whispered to myself, "I hope she finds herself one day." And I meant it. Because anger didn't live in me anymore. Only space for better things. I stood on my balcony one evening, sipping tea, as the city lights blinked like stars below. I thought of every version of me that came before this one. The quiet wife. The suspicious woman. The broken soul. The silent planner. And now, me. Just Maya. I took a deep breath and said aloud, "You made it." And for the first time, the silence didn't scare me. It comforted me. Marcus and I planned a weekend trip to the mountains. Nothing big, just nature, quiet, and fresh air. We rented a cabin with no TV. Just books, a fireplace, and long trails. One night, we sat outside on rocking chairs. The stars above looked like a story being written. He turned to me and said, "Do you ever think about us becoming more?" I looked at him. Not afraid. Not unsure. "Sometimes," I said. "But I don't need a title to feel safe with you." He nodded. "No rush," he whispered. "I'm just glad you're here." Back in the city, I launched my blog again. My first post was titled, "How I Sat 2 Tables Away from My Husband While He Cheated, and Didn't Flinch." It wasn't about revenge. It was about clarity, strength, and rebirth. I posted it and turned off notifications. 2 days later, it had over 50,000 views. Women commented. This gave me courage. "You told my story." I cried reading this. I hadn't expected it to go viral. But I knew this was just the beginning of something bigger. I was invited to speak at a podcast about self-worth and relationships. I hesitated, but agreed. The host asked, "What advice would you give to women who are in your shoes?" I said, "Don't wait for someone to see your value. Learn to see it yourself. The moment you stop begging for love is the moment you remember who you are." After the recording, I sat in the parking lot for a while. I didn't cry. I smiled. Because I had finally used my voice again. Marcus and I went dancing one night. A local place had a salsa class. We weren't great. In fact, we were pretty bad. But we laughed. A lot. Halfway through, he dipped me awkwardly, and we nearly fell. "Terrible form," I teased. "Best recovery," he grinned. We left sweaty and out of breath, but smiling like kids. That night, on the ride home, he said, "You're my favorite mess." And I replied, "Same to you." Jordan sent a final message. I signed the divorce papers. I'm moving out of the city. I hope you keep shining. You always were the light. I stared at it. And then deleted it. Not out of anger. But because I had already forgiven him. I just didn't need the reminder anymore. Marcus invited me to a rooftop party his friend was hosting. We danced, laughed, and watched fireworks light up the night sky. He leaned in and said, "You glow differently now." "I feel different." He nodded. "Because you're not surviving anymore. You're leading." And I knew he was right. My therapist asked me, "What's one thing you'd tell your past self?" I thought about it and said, "Stop begging to be chosen. Start choosing yourself." She smiled. Powerful. I whispered, "I lived it. And that's why it mattered." 1 year later, I returned to Marlow. Alone. I sat at a window table and ordered tea. I wasn't there to relive the pain, but to reclaim the place. The waiter asked, "Are you waiting for someone?" I shook my head. "Just me tonight." And I smiled. Because that was enough. Marcus came over with a small wrapped box. Inside was a simple gold bracelet with a tiny engraving. Chapter 1, Maya. I looked at him, surprised. He said, "Not a proposal. Just a reminder. You started your life over. You wrote your own beginning." I hugged him tightly. Some gifts don't sparkle. But they shine forever. I stood in front of a packed room, reading the final paragraph of my book. She thought she was winning. But I wasn't playing games anymore. I was building a life. One honest chapter at a time. The crowd clapped. Tears welled in my eyes. Not from pain, but from pride. I looked into the crowd and saw Marcus, smiling from the back row. I had lost what wasn't meant for me. But I gained something greater. Myself.